Have you ever tried to make a bargain with the universe?
Oh, I think we all have, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know the feeling. You are like sitting in traffic or waiting for a call, and you catch yourself promising that if you just get that promotion or if that business trip is successful, you will somehow balance the cosmic scales.
Right. You tell yourself you will volunteer or donate money or just finally be a better person.
Exactly. But what if your way of paying off that debt is actually, creating a much darker one?
That is a really unsettling thought, but it is exactly what we are exploring today.
It is. Welcome to this deep dive for the Simplified Awakening channel. Our mission here is to explore ancient wisdom to solve modern traps just like this are.
And we have a really fascinating ancient source to unpack today.
We really do. And hey, before we get too deep into it, if this sounds like your kind of journey, please hit subscribe, like this video, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It really helps build the Simplified Awakening community.
It does. And today, we are extracting a profound nugget of knowledge from a singular ancient text known as the Asitappata Jataka.
Right. So tell us, what exactly are we looking at with this material?
So the material we are examining today is a translation of ancient Buddhist birth stories. And we are focusing on one specific tale that really dissects the anatomy of our vows.
Okay, the anatomy of our vows. I like that.
Yeah, it looks at the nature of our sacrifices and the dangerous illusion of what the text calls release. It is a profound psychological trap, honestly.
Because people believe they are clearing the ledger, right?
Exactly. They think they are settling their debts, when in reality they are just writing their way deeper and deeper into the red.
Wow. Okay, so to understand how this trap works, I think we first need to look at the delivery mechanism of the message itself.
Right, the framework of the story.
Yeah, because this story belongs to a massive Pali work containing 550 Jatakas, or birth stories.
550 is a huge number of stories to preserve.
It is, and they are organized in a very particular, almost meticulous way. They are divided into 22 books based entirely on the number of ancient verses, or gathas, quoted in each story.
Right. The gathas are the core of the whole thing.
Exactly. And today's focus comes from the first book, which is called the Akanipada, meaning it revolves around just one single powerful verse.
Just one verse driving the whole narrative.
Yeah, but the narrative engine driving all 550 of these stories is what really gives them their philosophical weight.
Because everything hinges on the Buddha possessing the power to remember all past events.
Right.
In every being's previous existences.
Which is wild to think about. I mean, modern readers might brush that off as purely mystical,
Oh, for sure. It sounds like fantasy to a modern ear.
Yeah, but it wasn't an isolated concept in the ancient world at all. Even in Greek literary history, the philosopher Pythagoras claimed to remember his previous lives.
Hey, really? Pythagoras, the math guy?
The very same. He professed to have been born as Athaldes, who was the son of Hermes. And he even claimed to remember fighting in the Trojan War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he said he was Euphorbus in the Trojan War. He supposedly even claimed he could recognize the shield of Menelaus.
That is fascinating. I didn't realize the Greeks had their own versions of that.
They did. But in India, this recollection of previous lives, this doctrine of metempsychosis or transmigration, it has been a foundational feature of religious thought since the later Vedic period.
Right. And it wasn't just a fascinating parlor trick to guess who you were in a past life.
Right, exactly. It was much heavier than that.
Because the cycle of endless rebirth, samsara, was viewed as a heavy burden. The constant churning of life, death, and rebirth was something you wanted to escape.
Yeah, it wasn't like a fun game of dress up.
No, not at all. So when the Buddha recalls a past life, he's just telling a campfire story. He is pulling a highly specific case study from an infinite archive of human suffering to diagnose a present-day spiritual sickness.
I love that analogy. It's like a cinematic flashback. The protagonist sees a modern problem and says, oh, wait, this has happened before, and just transports the audience back in time.
That is exactly how it functions.
Yeah.
And wandering teachers utilize these birth legends heavily.
Because they needed a hook, right?
Yes. As they traveled from town to town delivering religious discourses, they needed something relatable to grab the crowd.
Right, because you have everyday people dealing with crops, money, and just basic survival.
Exactly. You can't just hand them dense, abstract ethical precepts and expect them to care.
No, their eyes would just glaze over.
Right. You have to wrap the philosophy in a narrative they recognize. You use fables to rouse their flagging attention.
Which makes total sense. And we know these stories permeated the culture deeply, too. By the 3rd century BC, Jataka scenes were already being sculptured into the carvings on the railings around the relic shrines of Barhut.
Wow, so it was literally carved in stone.
Yeah, complete with inscribed titles. This was popular culture carrying profound philosophy.
And it's interesting because the verses themselves, the gathas, are written in a much more archaic language than the stories surrounding them.
Ah, so the verse is older than the prose story.
Yes, the verse is the older kernel of the work. The traditional commentary and the narrative context likely passed by word of mouth, adapting and shifting over time.
But the archaic verse remained crystallized.
Exactly. It was the unchanging moral center.
That is so cool. Which brings us to the specific present-day problem that triggers the Buddha to recall the Asitappata Jataka.
Right, the story of the present.
Yeah. So the setting is Jetavana, and the anxiety he targets is universally relatable, even today. It is the anxiety of travel and money.
Two things we still stress about constantly.
Oh, absolutely. So people are going on business journeys, and travel in the ancient world was incredibly dangerous.
You had bandits, disease, totally unpredictable weather.
Yeah, you didn't have GPS or roadside assistance. You were on your own. So out of fear, these travelers start making vows to the gods.
Sort of hedging their bets.
Exactly. They promise, they say, if we come safely back with a profit, we will give you another sacrifice.
And then when they inevitably return with a profit, they credit the gods for their safe passage.
Right. And to fulfill their vow and secure their so-called release from the promise, they slaughter living creatures.
They offer a blood sacrifice.
Yeah. Now, the brethren, the monks at Jetavana, observe this happening all around them, and they approach the Buddha and ask him directly if there is any merit in this practice.
Like, is there any good in killing to provide a feast for the dead or to fulfill a transactional vow made for a profitable journey?
Right, and the Buddha unequivocally tells them there is no good in it.
None at all.
But wait, I kind of want to push back on this playfully on behalf of you, the listener, because I struggle with this on a fundamental level.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we strip away the animal sacrifice part for just a second, isn't reciprocity just basic human nature?
I mean, sure.
Like, we treat the universe like a vending machine sometimes. We put in a promise, we get a profit, and then we pay our tab. What's so wrong with keeping a promise?
Right. We operate on social contracts.
Yeah. Why is the Buddha condemning the basic fabric of how we interact with the world? If someone promises a tribute in exchange for wealth, and they get wealth, shouldn't they honor the contract?
So the Buddha isn't condemning gratitude,
Yeah.
right? He is exposing a fatal flaw in the mechanics of their reciprocity.
Okay, a flaw in the mechanics. Explain that.
Well, the people making these sacrifices are operating under a purely administrative view of the universe.
Like they are accountants.
Exactly. They think of the vow as an isolated contract. They think, I owe a debt, I pay the debt, the ledger is clean.
Okay, I see where this is going.
But the Buddha's pointing out the karmic reality. They're trying to clear a debt by committing a harmful act. They were trying to buy spiritual purity with violence.
Ah, so you cannot isolate the fulfillment of a vow from the nature of the act used to fulfill it.
Precisely.
So they are attempting to clear an old debt by taking out a much more dangerous new one.
Yes. The taking of life creates a massive karmic weight.
Because karma isn't just a vague notion of what goes around comes around.
Right. The ancient Indian concept of karma is an inescapable law of cause and effect.
So by slaughtering creatures to pay off a perceived favor, they are actually generating immense suffering in the present.
Exactly. They believe they are balancing the scales of justice, but they are actually chaining themselves to a future of negative consequences.
Man, that is a trap. And to break that illusion of the cosmic vending machine, the Buddha doesn't just lecture the monks, right?
No, he pulls from his internal archive of past lives.
Right, the cinematic flashback. He transports the listeners back to the Kasi country to show the ultimate conclusion of this transactional mindset.
And he introduces a character who perfectly embodies this error. The squire of a little village.
Okay, the Squire. And just like the modern merchants in the present day, this Squire is setting out on a journey. He promises a sacrifice, but specifically to the fairy of a banyan tree located at the entrance to his village.
Which makes sense in that context, because animism was a deeply ingrained part of the local religious landscape.
Yeah, spirits were believed to inhabit trees and rivers and crossroads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the squire makes his deal with this localized spirit. He completes his journey and returns successful.
And feeling obligated, he slays a number of creatures, gathers the bloody offering, and approaches the banyan tree.
because he wants to be officially released from his vow.
I just picture this squire marching up to the tree, chest puffed out, fully expecting a spiritual receipt.
Oh, completely.
It's like taking out a high-interest payday loan to pay off your credit card. You get the immediate emotional relief of seeing that first balance go to zero.
Right, the immediate release.
Yeah, but you've secretly just changed yourself to a much more ruthless collector down the road. The squire thinks he is completing a transaction, ready to have his cosmic punch card stamped.
But he is entirely unprepared for what happens next.
Because the spirit of the tree is not appeased by the blood, right?
Not at all. The spirit is appalled. And here's the twist. The Bodhisatta, meaning the Buddha in a former life, is actually that very tree fairy.
Wait, really? He is the tree spirit?
Yes, he is standing right there in the fork of the tree observing all this carnage.
Wow. So the squire thinks he is demonstrating honor by paying his debts, but the tree fairy is looking at the brutal reality of the slaughtered animals.
Exactly. The squire's definition of release is purely administrative. He just wants to check a box.
But the tree fairy sees the invisible chains of karma wrapping around the man's future.
Right, it really highlights the tension between two completely different worldviews.
The administrative mind versus the karmic mind.
Yes. The administrative mind focuses only on the closed loop of the contract. Did I pay what I said I would pay?
Right.
But the karmic mind sees the sprawling web of consequences.
So the squire believes the sacrifice frees him from an obligation to the tree, but the tree fairy understands that the act of slaughter actually binds the squire to the very cycle of suffering he should be trying to escape.
Which brings us to the climax of the narrative.
Right, the gatha.
Yes. Standing in the fork of the banyan tree, the Bodhisatta speaks this single ancient stanza to the squire.
Which forms the moral core of this entire section of the text.
Exactly. He says, "Take thought of life hereafter when you seek release. For this release is bondage strict. Not thus the wise and good release themselves. For this, the fool's release in bondage ends."
The fool's release. Man, what a devastating critique of our desire for shortcuts.
It really is. The bondage the tree fairy warns of is the inescapable karmic weight of taking a life.
Because you cannot circumvent ethical behavior with a transactional payoff.
Exactly. True release, like true liberation from the cycle of suffering, cannot be purchased with the suffering of others.
The wordplay in that translation is just brilliant. The fool's release, in bondage, ends. The very mechanism the squire uses to free himself is the exact mechanism chaining him down.
It's deeply ironic.
And we do this constantly in modern life, you know? Think about it. We tell a lie to get out of an uncomfortable conversation, seeking immediate release from the awkwardness.
Right, just avoiding the friction.
Yeah, but then we are bound by the anxiety of maintaining that lie for months. We choose the fool's release because we are terrified of the immediate discomfort of doing things the right way.
That is a perfect modern parallel. And the impact of that realization on the ancient villagers was immediate, by the way.
Oh, it was. What happened?
Hearing the tree fairy expose the mechanics of their actions, the sources tell us the men refrained from the taking of life.
So they actually listened.
They did. They abandoned the bloody sacrifices and chose instead to walk in righteousness.
Wow.
And the text explicitly states that their ethical living eventually led them to throng the city of the devas.
Meaning their shift from transactional violence to genuine ethical behavior resulted in heavenly rebirths.
Yes, they avoided the hellish realms they were unknowingly courting with those sacrifices.
That distinction is so vital.
It is. In fact, scholars like Fear noted an alternative title for this story in some manuscripts, the Asitappata Jataka.
Padvavata, what does that translate to?
It translates to the destroying or taking of life.
So that alternative title deliberately shifts the focus away from the administrative nature of the vow and places the spotlight squarely on the violent act committed in the name of the vow.
Exactly. It forces the reader to confront the real-world harm caused by their supposed spiritual practices.
That makes total sense. So, having delivered this memory, the Buddha brings the narrative loop back to the present moment at Jetavana, right?
Yes, closing the loop, as is traditional in all Jataka tales. He finishes recounting the story to the monks who had initially asked about the business sacrifices,
And then he identifies the birth.
revealing that he himself was the tree fairy of those days.
You know, there is a strange comfort in that continuity.
What do you mean?
Well, you have this wise presence continually showing up across lifetimes, right? Whether as a human teacher at Jetavana or a spirit in a banyan tree, He's always there to gently correct humanity's misguided shortcuts.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. It functions as a sort of cosmic course correction mechanism.
Exactly. And I think the Asitappata Jataka speaks perfectly to our modern condition.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we live in an era obsessed with life hacks, optimization, and just, getting what we want with minimal friction.
We want the profit of the business journey without the ethical heavy lifting.
Right. We treat our moral lives the same way we treat our online shopping carts.
That's spot on.
We just want to click buy now on peace of mind and have it delivered by tomorrow.
But the text reminds us that the means are the ends. You cannot separate the steps you take from the destination you arrive at.
Right, you can't just hack your way to spiritual purity.
No. If your path to release involves causing harm, cutting corners, or sacrificing your integrity, you aren't finding release at all. You are just entering a stricter form of bondage.
It's that fool's release again. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you, the listener, to consider the modern obsession with things like carbon offsetting or guilt-free consumerism.
Oh, that's a great example.
Think about it. We take a private jet, or we buy cheap mass-produced goods made in terrible conditions, and then we click a button to donate $3 to plant a tree.
And we think the ledger is balanced.
Exactly. We think we have achieved a release. But does buying a localized pardon actually erase the broader systemic damage we just participated in?
It really doesn't.
Are we just paying for indulgences, treating the universe like an administrative checklist while the actual karmic weight of our actions just piles up?
It requires deep, uncomfortable reflection on the actual cost of the bargains we make every day.
It really does. Are your quick fixes actually freeing you, or are they a fool's release that ensures you will never actually escape the cycle you are trapped in?
That is the ultimate question.
And on that note, thank you for joining us on this deep dive for the Simplified Awakening channel. Please take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts on the Fool's Release in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button to join our community.
Your engagement really helps us bring more of this ancient wisdom to light.
It does. And please, stay hooked for the next story on the channel. We have another incredible journey into the past waiting for you, extracting more knowledge to help simplify your awakening. Until then, remember, true release doesn't come from a transaction. It comes from the path you walk.